So I finally watched Joker Folie à Deux, and henceforth I will just be referring to it as Joker 2. Now, I have a full review of the movie itself on my website, StudioJakeMedia.com, but I wanted to expound on some thoughts in this video essay. 'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side. Hi everyone, my name is Jacob Berry. Welcome to the Studio Jake vidcast where I talk about all things pop culture. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and be sure to ring that little bell so you get notifications when I post a new vidcast, especially if you're watching on YouTube, and consider becoming a channel member. Okay, so here is your obligatory spoiler warning. Coming into Joker Folie à Deux or Joker 2, I had some apprehension about it because I felt like the first one was just such a lightning in a bottle type situation that I wasn't sure DC Universe or DC Studios, whatever they're called these days, could replicate it. And that does seem to be the case in many ways because movies about villains without their superhero, especially if they're comic book based, they don't have a lot of agency on their own. They exist primarily for antics against that particular superhero. Now, Venom could work because despite Venom's origins being connected to Spider-Man, he had a long storied history of being sort of an anti-hero when he and Spider-Man had a truce. Now, apparently he's back to being a villain again, which I think is actually better. I don't mind the anti-hero Venom, but I also appreciate the more villain aspects of him. Joker is different. DC Comics had tried in the past to do solo Joker comics where it just kind of focused on him and his madness, and they never really went anywhere. They all would always end after, I think one ended like only after 5 issues because they realized apart from Batman, the Joker doesn't really make a lot of sense. So going into the first film, I was apprehensive. However, it really did create a solid representation of the Joker. It kind of relied more into the sort of Red Hood origin, just without the Red Hood. So that being the Joker is a failed comedian, and instead of falling into a vat of acid, he just kind of puts on makeup and goes on television. I know it was a combination of Martin Scorsese's film The Taxi Driver and I believe his film The Kings of Comedy, I think it's called. It was kind of a combination of those two films. Now, one of the things I liked about Joker is it turned Gotham City into a character. So it showed how Gotham itself, just as a force of nature, was affecting Arthur and the people that his sort of accidental revolution were handling. And of course, the media hated that movie. They tried to bring, for some reason, racial undertones into the success of the movie. And I really think Todd Phillips felt that pressure. He didn't even want to do a sequel. Now, this is a little bit of conjecture on my part. I'm willing to admit it. But it seems to me what happened is Warner Brothers came to him before they were Warner Brothers Discovery, and they said, hey, we want you to make a Joker sequel. And he said, well, I don't want to. So then they said, fine, we'll do it without you. They went to Joaquin Phoenix, and Joaquin Phoenix says, well, I'm not going to do it without Todd Phillips. So then they went back to Todd Phillips and just offered him a ton of money and or strong-armed him into doing it. So he goes about making the sequel. Apparently, Joaquin Phoenix has a dream where it's a musical, and he decided to go that route. This is where I'm going to talk about 4 aspects of the film that I found very compelling. So first of all, the music. Now, Lady Gaga is a fantastic singer, no question about that. Joaquin Phoenix, he's a decent one. I mean, he sang really well in his Johnny Cash biopic, but here he just kind of lumbers around and he just kind of sings normally. I'm not sure what that added to the movie. It didn't really add anything because sometimes they were dream sequences and other times they were just his perception of reality. So which was it? It's fine if you want to do it either way. I've seen movies that have done it that way where it's a version of reality and they use it just to advance the plot of the film a little bit without doing a whole lot of story, or they've done it where it's people's dreams or daydreams even. But this time they were putting out a confusing narrative on it. And in fact, a lot of the music really wasn't that good. It was just Lady Gaga's talent just pushed it through, but not completely. You just had these random music scenes that would pop up for no reason. And you were like, okay, I guess we're back in the song. I remember at one point I actually rolled my eyes over it. Number 2, it seems like the movie actively hates the audience of the first one. And I'm not just talking about, sort of the fan boys and fangirls about it. And I would like to say that there's a little bit of gaslighting going on here because they were trying to make it like it was a bunch of right wingers who were using the Joker as an example when that wasn't true. In fact, a parody of Joker was made called The People's Joker, and it was all about a left-wing activist who used neo pronouns causing a ruckus. It was kind of like Todd Phillips made this movie as a slap in the face to the perceived audience of the film. But the fact is, it's not right-wingers who identify more with villains. Very rarely, I won't say never, but that's a very rare thing. It's mostly left-wingers who identify with villains. And that's because they have a smug sense of self-entitlement. They have this idea that they are important, that they are the main story in the world, very selfish, and poor fashion sense. And that's why they identify more with the bad guys, is they think that their way is right and it's correct, and everyone who disagrees with them is stupid, which is kind of what Joker is, right? At the conclusion, he accidentally becomes this hero of the Gotham masses who see themselves as undercurrent when he's just this very troubled man. And in Joker 2, they take that agency away from him and he just kind of does things. He's controlled by the Arkham guards, he's controlled by his lawyer, he's controlled by Lee Quinzel throughout the whole film. He never really does anything for himself except really on two occasions, but then the scenes following that immediately undercut it. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for that. So it was like Todd Phillips wanted to target an audience for it that didn't actually exist. In fact, there's a whole courtroom monologue where Arthur, goes kind of on this Svengali thing, and it's felt like a slap in the face, like he was lecturing you about liking him and the things he did despite being a murderer. And I found that very sort of self-aggrandizing of Todd Phillips. Number 3, you can tell that Todd Phillips had a lot of ego making this. He's mainly known for his comedies. He did a lot of raunchy comedies in the early 2000s and in the 2010s. And so with Joker, he wanted to do more of a profile, a case study, all about how mob mentality can kind of uplift a horrible person as a hero. And again, the media tried to gaslight people and say this was a bunch of white right wingers when that's not who was identifying with the movie. I mean, again, if you look at the impact it had on pop culture, you can see it was the people who were happy about, say, race swapping or changing a character's dating preference or whatever the case may be. It was those people who were embracing Arthur Fleck. It wasn't right wingers. Now, right wingers were kind of looking at him and saying, oh, this is a more empathetic version of the Joker. Now, I can empathize with him without agreeing with him. That's how a well written villain is. But I didn't think, oh yeah, Slay King. I didn't think that watching Joker. To me, it showed how he fell apart and how he embraced his supervillain aspects. And he didn't have to fall into a pot of acid for doing that. But Todd Phillips' ego was wounded by the bad press that he was getting from the first film. But instead of continuing Arthur's story, maybe even introducing Batman as a counterfoil to that, he decided that, hey, I'm going to show people that I can make this movie and make Arthur look pathetic, weak again, and that the Joker was just sort of a shadow. That's where things went wrong, I think, especially if you're making the film's plot based on your lead's dreams. And number 4, there's also already gaslighting going on about it. Now, I want to express something because this is sort of related to the end, so here's a major spoiler. The final scene of the film is Arthur is about to go to the visitor station in Arkham State Hospital, which, by the way, there's an inconsistency there because in the original movie, Arkham was just in the city of Gotham, but in this one, for some reason, it's on an island, so I don't know why they did that inconsistency, but whatever. He's walking down the hall to the visitor center because he has a visitor. An inmate who's kind of been in the shadows watching him the whole movie tells him a joke, assaults him with a knife, and he dies. And as Arthur is bleeding out, there's one more song number. This is where I rolled my eyes, as I mentioned earlier. And you see the inmate cut a glass glow smile into his face. Now, a few people were saying that this was disrespectful to Heath Ledger because apparently they wanted to do that at the end of Todd Phillips' Joker where he was going to cut it in, but Christopher Nolan, who was at Warner Brothers at the time, kind of put the stop to that. So that's why they did the whole, he just rubs his own blood and makes a smile at the end of the original. A few people were saying this was disrespectful to Heath Ledger doing it, and I actually don't think Todd Phillips was trying to be disrespectful to Heath Ledger specifically. I think that he was just like, how can I quickly show that this is going to actually be the Joker? The sad thing is this would have been a compelling ending. So it could have ended maybe where Arthur Fleck gets executed in Gotham prison or something like that, but then he's inspiring the Joker from the comic books to come out. They could have done something like that. My problem is not that it's disrespectful to Heath Ledger, but that now people are trying to use it to gaslight real Batman fans. So they're trying to say, see, all you critics, you didn't like Arthur Fleck as the Joker. Well, there's the real Joker. That's complete BS. I think Todd Phillips was just saying what Arthur did was going to continue on because Arthur was too weak to be the leader of the revolution he accidentally created. So here's the real Joker. But now people are starting to use it as a way to gaslight people. And I think that that is really a shame because the movie should just be able to stand on its merits. Just because a movie has some sort of twist at the end doesn't automatically make it good or make people who didn't like it some sort of fool for not getting the joke, quote, quote. It's just a poorly written movie that has a plot twist at the end. Tone it down and listen, don't let other people gaslight you into liking it. I loved the first one. I'm just going to pretend that this one doesn't exist. I'm going to not buy the DVD. I'm a big collector of physical media. I'm not going to buy the DVD for this one. I'm just going to appreciate the first one for what it was. But as far as Joker 2, I feel like it was a movie where the director's ego got in the way and he didn't really have a solid vision on what it was. Not to mention he didn't have much supervision. Apparently James Gunn and Peter Safran, who are the co-chairs of DC Studios, they kept trying to give him notes and he kept sending them back basically. They had way too much money and didn't know what to do with it. And so they just put something together. And instead of making a compelling sequel where we got to see the Joker rise as the Clown Prince of Crime, we got a Uno reverse card that tried to gaslight fans and also give sort of smug lecturing to the fans of the first film. If you liked that video, be sure to give it a like, share it out to all your friends, leave me a comment and tell them what you think, and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, ring that little bell so you get notifications when I post a new vidcast, and consider becoming a channel member for exclusive perks. If you would like to support me outside of big tech, head on over to my locals community. The link is in the description of the video. You can send me tips for articles that I post there, or you can become a monthly subscriber. You can also purchase one or all of my books. The first 3 here are available on barnesandnoble.com. They're all 4 available on Amazon. Pick one up and leave me a 5-star review. It really helps out indie creators like myself. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake.
'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side, PCH, country limit. I don't need a guide.